Right.
So we were just talking about Jean-Claude. So
Yes.
now we got the whole, and Charlie Wang. And then now I didn't go because this is a very low budget production. And back then, yeah, you didn't bring the writer along with you unless it was absolutely necessary, unless he was also a producer or something. So I was not on the set for Rambo 3 or for Bloodsport, neither one of them. And yeah, and then they shot the film. They again, if you read my book,
Yeah.
it's got all the gory details in there, because the very first cut of Bloodsport was just terrible.
That's what I heard. I was actually going to ask you about that because
I went to see it. Yeah,
I've heard the stories.
I went to see the screening with Jean-Claude and Frank Dukes and a few other, and Michelle Kesey was there, and we're looking forward to this. Like, wow, okay, we're going to see the first cut of the movie, and we were all completely depressed afterwards after we saw this. They really missed the boat, and I think the problem was that they had this old-time editor, Carl Kress, who I think he'd been nominated for an Oscar for The Towering Inferno or something. But anyway, he was like old school Hollywood, and he just didn't get this film. He didn't, because this really was a new kind of a action movie.
Right.
There really hasn't been a tournament movie like Bloodsport before. Okay. It was the way I structured it was really kind of original, because my whole concept was, it's just about the tournament. It's just about the fight. That's it. That's the whole movie. So at the beginning of the movie, you meet some of the fighters. They're getting, where are you going? Hey, I'm going to the Kumite. Hey, you can get killed in that thing. Well, only if I fuck up. And then we're in Hong Kong. We're at the Kumite. We're meeting all the fighters. Then we've got the fights. We got the final fight, Jean-Claude versus Bolo. And then Jean-Claude gets on the plane at the end to go back home, and the movie's over. All right, that's it. It's basically, it's all self-contained. It's all about the tournament. There's some flashbacks where he meet, with his teacher, his training, and all that stuff. But otherwise, there's not really much of a story there, except, and then I also added these these two guys that are after him that want to bring him back because he went AWOL.
Right.
So it had a lot of interesting elements, but the basic structure was, starts with the Kumite, and we see the Kumite, and once the Kumite is over, everybody goes home. Now that structure was used a lot afterwards. There were a lot of tournament movies. Blood.
It seemed like every other movie that came out in the 90s on VHS was a tournament movie. After
right, yeah, Blood Fist, Blood Games, Blood Match. Yeah, it really created a whole subgenre.
Right.
But Carl came from a different, from old Hollywood. He had a whole different perspective. He just didn't quite get it. And then Canon had a guy who was like their fixer, like their editorial fixer, named Michael J. Duthie.
Yep.
And they put Michael on it. And Michael went on to do a bunch of big films. He ended up doing a lot of stuff for Roland Emmerich. I think he cut Stargate.
Yes. Yeah.
At the time, he was just fixing Canon movies, like those Michael Dudikoff ninja movies. They put Michael on them to, somebody else would cut them, and then they bring Michael in. Michael would fix it up. So Michael really fixed up Bloodsport. He restructured it and made the fights work. And actually, Jean-Claude got in the editing room with him for the fights, because Jean-Claude understood the fights, how they were set up. And then we had the great music also. Like without the music, it didn't work nearly as well. So yeah, we had so Stan Bush wrote a few songs.
Yes.
And oh crap, I shouldn't blank on the composer's name, but the music was just terrific in it, and all of that. You put it all together, and it's a terrific genre movie. They just so it's like 40 years later, they just came out with special edition Blu-ray in Germany, which is, I think, is going to, which, and they basically made it 4K. So it's a 4K special edition Blu-ray with a bunch of special features on it. I think it's just region B right now, but it'll come out in the US too, because there's people have been clamoring for a 4K special edition version of Bloodsport for the last few years. So
Absolutely.
and they wouldn't have been clamoring for it if they didn't love the movie as much as they do.
So I'm just wrapping my head around it, because it's just funny how this little short movie, and then like all this happens because of it. Now let's go back to Firefight real quick, and now, as you said, this was just, you were just going to give the actors, a copy of it. How did it 40 years later did it get the chance to see the light of day for people to actually view it and see what you did way back when?
Oh, so what was the question? Because there's a little glitch and I missed some sound.
So like I said, like the short film wasn't, I mean, that's how you got the director game for Lionheart and stuff like that. But how did 40 years later did it come to pass that people would eventually get to see what you had done with Firefight?
People have been clamoring for it for years. Well, once they heard that I made this little movie called Firefight with Frank Dukes. Okay, like where else can you see Frank Dukes on film in a movie role? Okay,
absolutely.
He did another movie in the Philippines called Get the Terrorists, but apparently that's not even worth sitting through 5 minutes of that. Okay. But so here's Frank Dukes, here's Philip Rhee and Simon Rhee, the guys who went on to do the best of the best movies. Here's Brian Thompson, who had numerous roles. And it's a funny thing about Brian, he's been killed by every big action star.
Absolutely.
Okay? Yeah. Stallone puts him on a meat hook, and Schwarzenegger rips his heart out, and Brian's been in a lot of big films, and not always action films. He's been in some comedies too, like Three Amigos. So he's had quite the career, and this is his very first outing, and he was just terrific in it.
Yeah, that's how he got his SAG card. That's how he told me, he got a SAG card because he had done this with you. So
right, yeah.
And just to hear him, tell the story and everything, it was just how don't you feel like how honored are you that all this was because of this little, because you couldn't do it on a stage play, so you're like, hey, let me make this movie, and then it was like, it's like a boulder going down a hill, and all this transpires afterwards.
and I would have. Had I not done this, I would have ended up doing something else.
Right.
Just like, Jean-Claude, had he not been in Bloodsport, Jean-Claude really had the chops to be a action star, and he would have found another way. It's just that Bloodsport fit him so perfectly. That was his real breakout film. However, Bloodsport was not a real career mover for Jean-Claude or myself. And people think it was. People think, well, Bloodsport kind of made your career. No way. What really got the ball rolling with me was Rambo 3. Okay, right. Like that was kind of a big deal. That was a big movie. It was the most expensive movie ever made at the time. And then what really got things flowing with Jean-Claude and myself was when we made Lionheart. Before Lionheart, everything was low-budget distributors, like Canon and Kings Road and companies like that. But with Lionheart, we made it for a very low-budget company, Imperial Entertainment. However, it ended up being seen by some executives at Universal
Pictures. Yep.
That was via Sam Raimi. Sam Raimi saw the movie, and I introduced him to Jean-Claude. He liked Jean-Claude. He liked Firefight. So Sam is the one that got an executive named Jim Jacks into a screening that they had of they called it a sizzle reel. It was just like 20 minutes of fight scenes from Lionheart. And Jim went and told his honchos at Universal, hey, I saw a cool little movie the other day, you guys should screen it here and think about picking it up because it doesn't have a U.S. distributor. So that's basically what happened. So Universal, they see it, they like it, they make a deal with Sunil Shah, and now we're getting U.S. distribution by a major studio, Universal.
Right.
But had never had that before. So that's the one that really, more so than Bloodsport at the time. Bloodsport really didn't do much for Jean-Claude or me at the time because it was just this low-budget canon movie that that did sort of okay in theaters, but it didn't rock anybody's world. It had fans. There were people who liked it.
Well, the thing was, it didn't make yours or Jean-Claude's career, but I mean, besides No Retreat, No Surrender, which a lot of people really did see, except for me or niche audiences, but Bloodsport was the movie that announced him because I remember going to see it on opening weekend, and I was just like, who the hell is this guy? Because I didn't know So yeah, so that's why they probably associate Bloodsport with a career maker for Jean-Claude.
Right. But that was just really the first big stepping stone, and and then he did a few other films after that.
Right.
Cyborg.
Yep.
And Cyborg, that's a whole story.
I know it well. It was supposed to be the sequel to Masters of the Universe. Yep.
Right. So we pretty much saved that movie, and the chapter in my book is even called "Saving Cyborg." And you read about you've heard about it, I guess, but
exactly.
Jean-Claude and I pretty much rescued that movie. That was prior to Lionheart also, and Lionheart is the one that really propelled him into the majors, because right after Lionheart, then we did Double Impact, and that was Columbia TriStar. So again, there's a major studio. We're making this movie for a major studio, gets released by a major studio, gets released all over the world by some of the bigger distributors. So that's the one. So Lionheart and Double Impact, there's like a 1-2 punch. Those are the two that really made my career and Jean-Claude's career. And then we just, then there was, the world was wide open after that.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because like when I was talking to Brian's because I thought that most people would associate him with the Night Slasher from Cobra, because he was such an influential villain in that movie. But he says no. He's like, I'm mostly recognized by people for Lionheart, which he didn't do any action in that movie. He was just kind of like on the sidelines. But he says that's the one that he gets fans clamoring to him for, was Lionheart, not Cobra, like many people would think it was.
And he told me, and I've seen this myself, towards the end, during the final fight, he's in the crowd, basically, cheering on Jean-Claude's opponent, and Jean-Claude kicks him in the face.
Right.
And that got applause every time I saw it in the audience. It got applause, and people still talk about that. And people come up to Brian, they talk about him getting kicked in the face by Van Damme. So.
I love his reaction when he got of him slouching over at the look on his face. It's priceless. It's priceless.
Brian's got he's got a real knack for comedy.
Yeah.
Also, so that's
the thing people don't know about him. Like, everybody associates him with these action movies, but like, he's done Macbeth. He's done he's so much, or Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where he played the bad guy. That's where they think, but he's so much more than that.
I would have thought that people know him from Mortal Kombat,
and
more than Lionheart, but apparently and Cobra also. But I don't think that many people have seen Cobra. Although anybody who's seen it, they've got Brian Thompson's image seared into their brain. Okay, because Brian's really amazing in Cobra. So I guess it's not really one movie, but although if Brian said Lionheart's the one that people talk about, I guess it's Lionheart. So
yeah. But, and it's funny because, like, he's in the movie, but there's nothing physical.
He's not a major character.
Kicked in the face.
And he wasn't even in the script, as I recall. I in the original script. I didn't even have that character, and I made up that character because I wanted Brian in the movie. And I thought Brian would be really cool playing like the henchman for Cynthia.
Right.
So I pretty much created that role for him, and it's become a memorable character for Brian.
And another funny aspect to Lionheart was Jeff Speakman's in it for like 30 seconds. You know,
no, Jeff actually had a larger role, although it wasn't on screen. Jeff was my reader, okay, when I was doing auditions. When we were auditioning actors for the movie, Jeff was the guy that would read Jean-Claude's lines to the actors.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was my reader, and then the producers liked him. I liked him, and I said, well, we got to find some way to squeeze Jeff into the movie. So we squeezed him in at the end, and he had a pretty nice career there for a while. In fact, Perfect Weapon, that was with Mark DeSalle,
right,
who produced Bloodsport.
Yep. So yeah. Look at you, just making careers left and right. It's like
absolutely, yeah, making careers and making connections. I've hooked a lot of people up, actually. I'm very generous about that. About hey, you know what? So I meet this guy Quentin Tarantino working at Imperial Entertainment, calling video stores all across the country, selling them VHSs that Imperial was producing. Had a great conversation with him the first time I met him. And I said, Quentin, you got to meet a friend of mine named Scott Spiegel, because Quentin is he's this trivia freak. He just knows so much trivia about movies, and Scott Spiegel does too. So I said, you got to meet Scott Spiegel. Well, Scott Spiegel co-wrote Evil Dead 2. Right. He knew who Scott was right away. So I hooked those guys up. I've hooked up a lot of people, actually. I introduced Sam Raimi to Jean-Claude, and they ended up making a few movies together, Time Cop and Hard Target. So I've hooked a lot of folks up in the business, and it's benefited me, it's benefited them.
I got to tell you, this has been one hell of a conversation. Like I said, some I didn't know about, some, and I want to tell you about your book. When your book did come out, I was going to read it, but not a funny story, but I was suffering from a neurological disorder at the time, so I wasn't really reading anything. So it was really hard for me to read literature. So I have it, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to review it too. I mean, I know it's after the fact, but yeah. So unfortunately, I was not at my healthiest when
what's the disorder?
It was called functional neurological disorder. So basically, what happens is they say, like, the software, your hardware is fine, meaning your brain, your heart, and stuff like that, but it's the software that malfunctions, and for whatever reason, it's stress related, and for whatever reason, it affected me to the point where I had to learn to walk, talk, and just do normal, simple things again. So, but through physical rehabilitation and love of my family, I got back to who I was. So yeah, so that's why I have not been able to, read the book, but I do have it. Yes, and I'm definitely going to read it.
I had a few neurological issues myself.
Okay.
One of which was called Bell's palsy.
Yes. Okay.
Makes it look like half your face is melting.
Yes.
And then I had one called third cranial nerve palsy.
Oh, no kidding.
I was seeing double. I mean, there's no way to avoid it. I was seeing double. I had to have my daughter drive. I couldn't drive a car. And I had to put a patch over one eye. And it was all neurological. It was all related to nerves and nerve connections to the brain. But anyway, that's neither here nor there when it comes to action movies.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I just wanted to, because I know you had mentioned it, and it had been brought to my attention, and I did put it into my website, because the website was a form of therapy besides the physical therapy, and it helped me through it. So yeah, but just reading at the time, I would have to read things like 5,000 times over. Like when I wrote an article for the website, it literally took me like 3 hours just to write like 3 paragraphs. That's how bad.
Wow.
Yeah. So
well, are you able to read now?
Yes, I'm doing much, as you can tell. I for whatever reason, they don't know what, I mean, they say stressors is a big cause of it, but whatever happens, and some people don't recover from it. Some people take longer than others. For me, it was about a year and a half to where I was actually able to drive and go back to work and stuff like that. So yeah.
Well, that's I went and saw the like neuro-ophthalmologist. Like, who knew that there was there were doctors called neuro-ophthalmologists? But yeah, exactly. I went and saw a few of them, and they told me, "Oh, this is going to go away.
Yeah,
don't worry about it." And it did. It went away, fortunately. So
yeah, I had like 3 neurologists at the time that I was going through, and they were giving me medication up the wazoo. And my wife she's just like, is Medicaid, so then I went through physical therapy, and they were great, and they helped me start moving again and start doing the simplest things, and how they explain things to me. And I'd be sitting there and like reading things and like trying to put things together, and that's what it takes. You just have to basically retrain your brain to accept information.
Wow, so that's pretty serious.
I mean, I know, right?
Yeah. So look, when you finally read the book, or maybe have somebody read it to you, after having this conversation with you, I know you're going to love this book. Okay. Yes. Love it. So definitely do what you can to get into it.
Absolutely. And I can't think, like I said, like we said at the beginning, you've given us fans so much entertainment, like with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and like just talking about Rambo 3, and then like how all this stuff interconnects, you can't beat this. Your life is, we can only transpire to think about like, hey, it's like, what have you done today type of thing.
Yeah, well, I've really intersected with a lot of people, well-known people in the movie business, who you wouldn't necessarily expect, but like with Quentin, I was kind of good friends with Quentin and then Sam Raimi, I still know all these people. Yeah. And then you got the action guys like Stallone and Van Damme. Worked on the Chuck Norris project. I worked with Dolph Lundgren in Israel. So yeah, a lot of interesting intersections there. That
the Dolph Lundgren movie is always interesting. I'm always interested in the story behind that one, because I've researched the Last Warrior or whatever,
right. Yeah. It's not very good.
No.
I'll warn you. My least favorite movie.
Well, the thing I remember when I watched it, there's not a lot of action going on in the movie.
And when you have no money, you can't do much in the way of action.
I know. I get it. I hear you.
You just have to leave the stuff. Okay, just forget about, let's tear some pages out of the script and just shoot the dialogue scenes. So, basically, there were a lot of promises made that were not kept as far as the budget and a bunch of other things. So
I hear you. Yeah,
I did what I could. And now, did you see Perfect Target though, by any chance?
Oh yes, I didn't know if we'd have. I love Daniel Bernhardt, and again Brian Thompson, and yes, that's one of my favorites.
That was a super low budget movie. It might have been,
but it didn't look super low budget.
No, it doesn't.
No, not at all.
I
tell people all the time, like through my website, I'm like, have you ever seen The Perfect Target? Perfect, and they're like, no, and I'm like, you need to watch this movie. I mean, it's for I don't want to call it B movie. I hate calling movies B movies. It's just, you got lower budgets and bigger budgets. But yeah, for what you guys did with what you had, it looks like a theater, like a theatrical.
Well, I'll drop a few more names on you.
Okay, go right ahead.
Okay. My fight choreographer on Perfect Target was Chad Stahelski.
Yep. I was, yep.
The guy who's directed all
Some guy that directed John Wick.
all the John Wick movies. Yeah. And we had David Leitch on it also. It was David's
David Leitch, yep.
first movie, and Chad brought him along, and so David was just kind of this like wide-eyed innocent, he'd worked on movies before, but he that was his first foray into it. And we had Robert Englund's in it, and the action scenes are pretty damn spectacular for no money, or very little money. We shot it very quickly. I think I shot it. I had
you said like 3 weeks or something, like 20 days.
Yeah, like 20 days or 21 days. But fortunately, they allowed me. I told them, hey guys, I got to have a second unit. It's the only way I get through this. So we put a whole second unit together, which was doable in Mexico because the labor was really cheap. And the camera equipment rental and all of that.
So you had 2 units going simultaneous. That's at the same time.
We were shooting. Yeah, we were shooting. Second unit was shooting some stuff. First unit shooting some stuff. So basically, we were getting twice as much done per day than is normally accepted. And that's how we got all that stuff done. But also, I had really good people. And Chad was pretty amazing. I had a second unit director who did a great job for us. So we had some really good people from Mexico. Our second unit director ended up directing feature films in Mexico. Our second unit DP has done tons of stuff since. If you look up their credits, you look at them on IMDb, and you'll see the stuff that they went on to do.
Right.
We had a really good cadre of people working on the film, and that's what helped me get through it. We had a good team, so it's a worthwhile movie, and it's got some great action. That's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, it's always funny because people ask me, and I'm like, do you think Chad Stahelski just like came into the business directing John Wick? No, he cut his teeth, as a stunt guy and a stunt director.
Oh yeah.
How do you think he learned all this stuff? In order to be able to be a director to direct the John Wick movie.
Well, it's like, Chad was introduced to me by Daniel Bernhardt because Chad did the fight
on Bloodsport too. He fought Chad on Bloodsport too. Yep.
Right. So he had a lot of experience doing, and I've never worked with a better fight choreographer than Chad. He's just miles above everybody else. He would come up with fights, and he'd have like a little notepad with him. And he'd just write down all the moves, okay, on a little piece of notepaper. And then we're on the set, and he's basically just going through. He basically pre-visualized the entire fight in his head, and he's just going through and just checking them off and just getting all the shots, and he pretty much knew exactly what he wanted to do. So it's I'm not surprised at all that he's moved up into the big leagues with these John Wick movies.
Right. And the fourth one, of course, just came out, and I saw it the other day. And it's just phenomenal, like what they think of, because it's one of those movies, like it's like how they got to top it, but then they do, and it's like you just like okay,
they do, huh?
Yeah, it's just like it's phenomenal. Do you have anything? Because I was going through your IMDb page, of course. Is the Run project that's still on there? Is that still in the works?
Which one?
Was it Fight Pride or?
Fight Pride. Supposedly, yeah. If they say they've got the money to do it now, and the guy who's going to be starring in it is this Norwegian named Daniel Stissen, and he's in an action movie that just came out called.
I just interviewed him for Siege.
Oh, really? Okay.
I talked to him a couple of weeks ago. Yep.
He's supposed to be our star, and
okay.
And I think he's got a lot of potential. So that's still supposed to be on, but until I'm on the set calling action,
you never know.
You just never know.
And that's the nature of the beast, that you got to roll with the punches.
Oops! Do we just lose?
Am I there?
We just had another little sound glitch here.
I was just saying, you just have to roll with the punches. That's the nature of the beast of being in this industry.
Right. Yeah. So. I've been doing that for years, and I've gotten a lot of stuff done. There's a lot of stuff that I wanted to do that didn't happen, and you'll read about those in the book.
Right.
And some of them are just going to say, they're just going to make you say, "Oh shit, I wish they would have made this damn movie."
That's what I and that's what I always felt like. It's like if they took fans' opinions or fans' theories and made movies, it would work. But they don't listen to it's like studio executives. It's like I don't know who they listen to, but it's not the fans and it's not the audiences that are watching.
Yeah, or sometimes they run out of money too.
Oh, that too. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Companies have gone bankrupt, and that's why we ended up not making Atlas. And look at the lineup for Atlas. We had Jean-Claude starring.
Yes.
I was going to direct.
And that sounded kick-ass. Intergalactic Gladiators.
And I co-wrote the script with Chuck Farr, who went on to write Hard Target and Man. So it was a pretty damn good lineup of people. But DEG went bankrupt, so it didn't happen.
I remember, to go back with Dolph Lundgren, I remember when he did The Punisher, that was for New World Cinema, and that was supposed to get a theatrical release, and they went bankrupt, and then nobody knew what happened to it. And then I was working at my cousin's video store, and all of a sudden there it was on VHS, and I'm like, holy cow, but it's like, that's what happens. Like companies.
You're talking about the very first Punisher?
Yeah, with Dolph Lundgren. Yeah.
So that was written. So here's another little.
Oh, do you have a story about that?
Yeah, Boaz Yakin wrote the script.
Yes.
Boaz and I have been friends for many years.
Yeah.
And we co-wrote a movie called Max about a military dog.
My wife loves that movie. We watch that all the time with the kids.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Love it.
Me and Boaz directed it. So
we love dog movies. We're dog people. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
My dog's sleeping on the other side of this wall right now. My bed is.
Oh, okay. Well, I got 2 German Shepherds out in the backyard. Fortunately, they're behaving. They're not barking. They're not jumping up on the door. So
right.
So we're good. But yeah, that was me and Boaz, and
going back to the Punisher.
There's a lot of stuff about Boaz that I didn't even put in the book because it's just too much to cram in there. Yeah, Boaz. Pretty sure Boaz is the one who. Somebody else. My friend Luis Esteban introduced me to Lawrence Bender, and Lawrence met Quentin via me, and ended up producing all of Quentin's early movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's more connections there, and I actually brought Boaz to Hong Kong to do a little bit of rewriting for us on Double Impact. So he came up with some really good lines for Double Impact. Yeah, he's like a stealth contributor to some of my movies, where he didn't care about getting credit. He and his brother were huge Bruce Lee fans. So I gave him this opportunity to come to Hong Kong. Basically, the studio was going to fly him and his brother out to Hong Kong, and they were just in heaven, being on Bruce Lee's home turf and going to some of the studios where they shot some of these Bruce Lee movies. And Boaz is the one who actually introduced me to John Woo movies.
Mm-hmm.
We were ready to go to Hong Kong, and he tells me, "Hey, have you seen any movies by this guy John Woo? You should take a look at these to just get some ideas." And you couldn't really find them in the U.S. They weren't in video stores yet.
Right.
I don't know how Boaz got a copy of A Better Tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in Hong Kong. I go to in a video store. You've got like 5 John Woo movies. All right. So I rented a few of those, and they did influence some of the filming that we did in Double Impact. Some of the gunplay scenes.
Yep.
Yeah. So and then of course John Woo ended up working with Sam Raimi and Jean-Claude. Hard Target.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what the hell? I got stories for days about different folks that I've intersected with, but I guess we can't we can't go on for too long here. So
No worries. I
we can
can't thank
sign
you.
off if you want.
No worries. I can't thank you enough. Like, this has been such a pleasure. Like I said, once I get the editing all done and everything, I can't wait to put it out there. The fans are going to eat this up, and of course I'll promote the book with it, like I said, because I wanted to actually talk. I was actually had the opportunity to interview when the book came out, but of course I was having some issues at the time and I wasn't really talking to people.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that this came out, because I got contacted and he's like, hey, I got this, for you. I'm like, oh, I'm like, okay. So I'm like, so it turned well. So I can't thank you for taking such a long time to talk to me and just to give me all these wonderful stories. And so, like I said, some I knew, some I didn't, and just as an action fan, just to hear you say
if
stuff
you want, we can do a follow-up after you've had a chance to go through the book.
Oh, that would be great. Would you do that? That is so
the book
awesome.
you're going to read stuff in the book and you're going to say, I never knew this. I never knew that. I didn't realize he worked with this guy. Oh, we didn't even talk about Only the Strong at all.
No, I didn't. I know. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
We'll do a follow-up. All right.
Oh, that is so awesome. Yes, I can't wait. I will. I look forward to it.
All right. Yeah, because we didn't talk about Mark Dacascos at all. And
I know I had notes. Yep, he was on there. Yep.
All right. We'll save that all for the follow-up. All right.
That's awesome. All right. Thank you so much. You have a wonderful rest of your day, and I can't wait to talk to you again.
Okay. Thank you very much, John.
All right. Thank you, Sheldon. All right. Have a good day.
Okay. All right. Bye now.
All right. Bye-bye.